good afternoon, good evening, good morning, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is my podcast, Jar of Marbles. I am a 60-year-old woman about to turn 61. I know, I keep on saying it because I can hardly believe it. I feel great and yet there's this number hanging over my head. But anyway, I'm glad that you were able to make it with me this week. I hope that you've had a good week. My week's been a real good one. I've been spending a lot of time with my 9-month-old grandson who is, can I just say, oh my God, divine. Anyway, moving on. This week, I want to talk a little bit about life's detours. Often we find ourselves in situations where, it wasn't really what we planned. And sometimes that's not a good thing and sometimes it is. I think a lot of it's perspective and also we've got to look at, what was our part in it. Anyway, moving on, let's go and do this. Life's detours. Listening more than you speak is an art. Self-aware people are good listeners because, they know that people talk a lot and people who talk a lot are often lacking in awareness of self. You could say that listening is an instantaneous hack into another level of consciousness which enables you to be in two places at once, if you were. So training yourself and totally knowing that you are listening, that in that moment you have consciously decided to do so, to me it feels so refreshing, like I'm standing in this vast empty space with only my ears doing the work. Self-awareness gives you the green light to seeing your default patterns. You may come face to face with unhelpful habits. I know when I was making conscious efforts to see, I would think immediately after another similar situation had occurred again, straight away my usual reaction would appear in my mind, and then upon recognising it, I was feeling that I am unable to change it. And then I started saying something that would appear out of character, non-reactive, something utterly different to what I would normally say. And it felt calming and it felt different. I mean, clearly these were things that I had thought about and forethought and was ready to, start saying different things in order to feel the temperature of the water, if you will. And I felt somehow victorious to me and only to me, that I was actually listening to myself in real time. Now, self-awareness and people who are self-aware, they know that they can never get rid of their own internal chatter. I find that relieving, big sigh worthy. So managing it more intentionally gives you a happier life. I want the happier life, and I'm sure you do too. True change must be your intention, your idea, and not someone else's. You may have heard the saying, you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. In other words, you can attempt to sell the wonders of getting happy, but not everyone cares to change. That's the Kool-Aid you must not drink, for you shall lose many years and it will not end well. So put the time into you. It is not being selfish. It's your destiny. If you're ready to become self-aware, you must take the decision on your own and put the work in yourself. I know, just that whole idea of putting in the work seems like another thing on top of another thing. But hey, if you're not investing in you, who else is there better than to invest in you? Because I've seen this for myself with my own, tracking my own behaviours and my own motivations and monitoring myself, that things start changing around me. People start changing around me. They either fall by the way or they start rising to be a better version of themselves too. This is true. So if you're ready, you are going to have to put the work in yourself. With all I'm saying here, it could be seen as risky or as untrue or unattainable. I'd imagine folk felt like that before aeroplanes took to the skies and soon became real and not such a wild idea. This is not aerodynamics. It is getting the best out of life and is only as hard as you think it is or make it. I am often putting my heart on the line with my outlooks, and folk with no awareness, no care to ask the questions, look at me like I've got two heads, or worse, invisible. But they have just told me all I need to know. Which brings me to embracing your detours with self-awareness. Self-awareness. That's right, Bob. You can feel life coming to you. You can sense something in the air. Music sounds better. You feel happy for no particular reason. You get grateful for everything. The greenness of the tree just poking over your back fence, the intricate shapes of a cloud, particularly the one on the left, the songs of the birds singing as they're flying by. It feels exhilarating when you're actually plugging into your life in those moments, that there is a vibration of gold in my books. And from nowhere, it would seem, things iron themselves out like a miracle of sorts. And finally you get that phone call or email, you get the green lights and the trains are on time. Your relationships feel better or seem to be just marginally improving. Your awareness of your surrounds seem heightened. Detours in life may lead to discovering places we never knew we loved. All of us have problems. None of us can bypass them. Truth is, it is often how we deal with them. If I'm in a really high mood, I literally laugh at the absurdity of life at times. The same thing on another day could have me swearing like a trooper. Point is, both reactions are fine, spot on in fact. I do like to keep things real. I laugh at myself at least once a week. It is usually more, but honestly, keep your good humour and kindness for your good self too. Then it seems easier to focus on finding a solution, and sometimes a problem isn't something to be solved. Sometimes it may be a truth that has to be accepted. That's a good one right there, isn't it? Especially if you find yourself in that place right now. Sometimes we just have to accept that is the truth of a situation. When I worked that out, I found a kind of peace because it ended a search that was not even there. There was nothing there to find. It was me having to accept what a person is capable of, for example, and not what I think they should be thinking or doing. No one needs that nor can fix that. It is none of my business. You can save yourself so much pain. That stuff will eat you up inside, and the only outcome is actually more pain and suffering. No, I'm just not doing it. No, either am I, Bob. We've all had to take detours. When a relationship is failing, you've had no choice but to take a detour, get to higher ground, but don't ruin your shoes in the process. So alternate routes are taken due to certain circumstances. We all sometimes have to change our plans or directions. Sometimes our dreams have to die to make room for something else, and that in itself can truly feel tragic. I was looking for a business to buy, this is many years ago, to set up my business, my cafe business again. This was going to be my third cafe business. I had looked at quite a few, but nothing was grabbing me. My circumstances at the time was I was separated from my husband and in the throes of a divorce, and my children were my two daughters. I had two children at that stage. One was 4 years old and the other was 7. And every second weekend I would, with my kids, drive down the south coast of Australia and take them on little adventures. And we'd be singing in the car and clapping and waving our hands out the windows. And, it was really just really innocently wonderful times. And we would just go to some really pretty places far away from the city. Now, one weekend we ended up going down further than usual, say another 100 k's, and I found a small food cafe business for sale. The long and the short of it is I bought it, and after much fuss and carry on, my kids and I, we moved down the coast. I found a lovely house, and it was great for all of us, particularly my girls. My daughters thrived, and this life detour meant that without, mulling on the hows and the whens, it fell into place really quite easily once I'd made the decision to do so. I felt like I was protected, and I felt like life was allowing me to breathe. I felt like that because my was band, my husband had been causing me, but more importantly, my little girl, so much pain and duress, and that finally we could exhale and just let them be little girls, free and protected. I never enjoyed living in the city. It's just too hectic for me, and it just didn't groove with my inner grooviness, and I wanted a detour without knowing it. I wanted my girls to have this detour, to be able to climb trees, because there's lots of those down there, and particularly where we were living, to ride their bikes safely and to, make play huts and explore, and they did. I've realised that lessons can come dressed as detours or roadblocks. I also know that life's detours provide some of the best memories and fodder for a podcast. Who would have thought? But here we are. If it's done on your terms, a firm decision you've made, it's so liberating. It gives you a distinct feeling of being in the driver's seat. No one else is making your life decisions or poking at you. I've got to say, it is life-changing. It changed my life and my daughter's lives forever in a most wonderful way. Leading by example has enabled them, to be very bold people. It made me know that you can never be too old for so-called fairy tales, and I do love me a fairy tale. It feels like that magic is inside you. That magic has been injected into your life, into your home, your business, everywhere you go. It is detectable, almost measurable, and enough people have commented on it to me for me to have a sense of it. It is released through going through the ideas, with music, dancing, and moving to where you feel drawn to live. In so many ways, creativity has many faces. I felt like I was surrounded by this amazing energy. There were many coastal beaches that we would visit, and some were calm and picturesque, while others were wild. The trees had been blown so consistently, harshly over the years that they sort of grew in indignant angles. And I loved to stand on the huge rocks and sing to the horizon, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you." That's right, Bob. These are the things that we do when nobody's around to judge us. But no matter how high the notes or loud my volume, the crashing waves were louder, and I loved knowing that I could sing my heart out and it would mix with the natural sounds. My children frolicking around on the beach and their hair blowing in the wind, and the thing that stood out most was their happiness, their smiles, and the utter freedom to just be. Those were the moments that are freeze-framed in my mind, that I could ever, for one moment, ever doubt that the decision that I had made was incorrect. And it turns out that being together, and even to this day, is our most favourite thing. This detour ensured their safety and their development, and that was so important to me. And so it meant that a day out, we called them adventures. Let's go on an adventure, and everyone would be like, "Yay!" And that it was places where we would just go. It might just be to the beach or at all. I guess what I'm trying to say is there was just a lot of laughter, and so if I said, "Okay, let's go on an adventure," we'd just all be grabbing, a cardigan, or I'd be grabbing my keys, and we'd be, off and away to go on our adventure. One adventure that we have laughed about many, many times is one day we went for a drive, and where we lived in the bush, which was really close to coastal beaches, as I'd said, in this particular place, you could take these really long roads where you could then jump out of the car and go walking through these, tracks in the bush. So we'd gone off into this walk, and the kids had not long watched The Mohicans, which I nearly died when I found that out, because they were so young. It's not a movie I would ever have been okay with, and it did affect them for a while. So anyway, we went walking in the bush, and each one were holding hands, and then I suddenly stopped, and I went, "Stop, did you hear that?" And they both look up at me and go, "No." I said, "I think the Mohicans are here." And both of them sort of, their faces screwed up like, "Oh, no." And I said, "There's also wild pigs here, and I think they're watching us." And they're like, "Oh, God." I went, "Got to be quiet. We're just going to turn around quietly, and we're going to walk back to the car." So we just turned around really quietly. Of course, suddenly every footstep we made was crunching grass, and we became very aware of every sound that we hadn't been aware of, up until I said that. Next thing, I started pulling on their arms really, firmly as we're running, and I started screaming. They started screaming, and then we're running to the car, and I purposely had the car in D for drive, so the car wouldn't start, because they didn't drive and they didn't know the car would not start unless it's in P for park. That added an element of excitement, and as in their minds, not only were the wild pigs coming, but the wild pigs coming, so were the Mohicans. And then eventually, being the hero of the day, I was able to put the gear stick into drive and we drove off and, we weren't attacked by the Mohicans or the wild pigs. That is really terrible. I know. But, these are the things. We had to create our own fun, and we talked about that for years, and the older they got, the more they understood that it was all invented to give them the fright of their bloody life. Plus, I got to be the hero and save them. So, that's always got to be a good thing as a parent. And it was sort of like revenge too, sort of like, do we need to go for a drive and find the Mohicans? No, Mummy. Okay, well, make your bed. Good. A detour is many things. It can be unexpected, a nuisance, frustrating, challenging, but it can also be beautiful. Where we lived in the country, we had to rely on tank water. And so the rain, bottom line, if there was no rain, there was no water, which meant no flushing the toilet. And the law of the land at that stage was, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. It really is a wonderful experience for us city slickers to understand and appreciate that the water in that tank in our backyard was all the water we had to drink, to wash, to flush. One season there was no rain and we were days out from having to order water in, which would have involved buying water and that would be delivered by a truck. Then the skies burst open and we were so excited that we all had rain that we started running around the porches of the house. The house had porches that went all the way around the house. So we were running around and skidding on the corners because it was so wet, and we lived down the side of a steep hill. So we could see the water smashing its way down and flying up into the air and carrying on down further on down the property itself. It was very steep. So as we were out in the porch, which was all covered with bulldog-styled roofing, we could see in the soupy distance the ocean, which was wild and stirred up from all the rain and winds, and we were quite exposed depending on the direction of the winds. And we were also surrounded by very tall eucalyptus trees, which moved very deep sort of bending movements by the sheer strength of the winds. We noticed that one of the large pipes that fed the tank from the house cutters had slipped off and was dangling away from the tank. And after the drought, we needed that water to be pouring into the tank, not down the side of the house. So I had to hang over the fencing around the porch, a sheer drop of at least 20 feet onto a slope that dropped even further again. My daughters grabbed a leg each while I bent right over to grab that pipe, so then to bring it back up into the opening of the tank. And then after I was able to come back safely onto the porch, we then congratulated each other, mainly because nothing bad had happened. And then it struck me that the rain was pouring so heavily. Why don't we grab some shampoo and get out and wash our hair outside? I mean, why not? The girls loved the idea, so we piled outside in our shorts and tops. The rain was smashing down. We lived on a 5-hectare property built down the side of a steep hill, as I keep on telling you. We had no immediate neighbours, surrounded by forests, and to the east, the ocean in the distance. We were passing around the shampoo and washing our hair outside, soap running down our faces, laughing and woohooing. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And I was helping the girls get the shampoo out of the hair as the rain got the soap out quite easily. And so it was all coming out steadily, got all the soap out. Everyone was feeling quite pleased with themselves. Then it was my turn. Soaked up my hair and started to wash it out, and no word of a lie, the rain stopped. I mean, like it just completely stopped. But anyway, we all piled back into the house. I had to go and have a shower because we had plenty of water, and it is a memory of many that we have while living on that property. It was just a magical experience. By sharing our stories, as I do here, we rewrite our narratives, we rediscover our true identities, which I find tintillating. We have then opportunity to become more adaptive, feel a little bit more empowered, and have a better attitude towards obstacles. And I think really enjoy your life with your eyes wide open, just taking it all in. Detours can feel like a blessing. During that rainy season, we had gone out to check the pipes were all in place. I say we because we did most things together, and it felt kind of important that we checked our pipes. So we'd go out and, check out the pipes, the one that released the water from the tank, because the tank was overflowing by this stage. Light water was not going to be a problem for the remaining summer weeks. But in that pipe was a green frog. its two webbed hands somehow holding on to something imaginary as well as its two webbed feet. It looked like a starfish with all the excess water flushing out in between all the spaces of its arms and legs. We were just fascinated. So we had to save the frog. So I leaned over the patio fencing again and the girls held onto my legs and I grabbed the pipe and allowed the frog to leap onto the side bank and then I placed the pipe back. This day was just amazingly special for the whole family because I say, we did things as a team and we knew it and we were really proud of it, and each an important person we were in our team. Everybody was just as important and all had their various roles. Even Carla, who was just, barely 2 at the stage, she was our tea towel folderer, and which was a very important job, and she took great delight and pride in folding her tea towels, and we would all just tell her fantastic it was. So when detours feel like blessings, sometimes it is because we can't go in the direction that we had anticipated, so we have to cut down our gears and adapt. We have to resource flexibility and inner strength that we usually don't even know that we have, the capacity of assessing. I'm pretty sure that prior to fixing the all-important pipes, ensuring our water supply, that was not anywhere in my resume. And yet, when any of us are faced with such challenging and no one is coming, you have to think on both feet and swing off that porch. When I returned to New Zealand back in the late 90s, I couldn't find a job, so I started a business. It wasn't the plan, but I had to pivot, create something that wouldn't overwhelm me. By this stage, I had 3 children. My youngest beauty was just 1 year old. None of this was advertised. It was snippets of information that I chased, and I got it. As the plans unfolded before me, I realised that I was starting a business in my hometown that I hadn't lived in for 16 years. It wasn't fulfilling a dream, but boy, it felt like it. My oldest beauty was attending her first year of high school, and my second beauty attended a country primary school. It did feel like a magical situation where my daughters were attending schools in my hometown after they were born and raised in Australia. So here we were in New Zealand and no idea how long we were going to be there, but we were there. Old school friends came into my shop, ex-teachers, ex-boyfriends, my friends, my children's friends, and none of this was possible if not for the detour we had taken. While I was there, I had a principal role in the 21st Centenary Rocky Horror Show. I played 2 roles, both Magenta and the Candy Cane Chick, opening and closing the show with the song Science Fiction. Absolutely not on the cards had I not detoured. I was in a band, Vicky and Friends, a fantastic collaboration of talented, a fantastic collaboration of talented musicians led by my ex-music teacher, mentor and dear friend, Vicky McLeod. Again, without the detour, none of this would have been possible. My youngest daughter, a baby, only 1 year old, gave me the welcome softness that only a baby can bring. And her and I practiced kissing on the windows of my cafe, mostly because she thought it was funny and also because, it's very important to know, it's an essential skill. And that brings us to the end of yet another podcast. There are so many things that happened while I was in New Zealand, and I could see that it was starting to flow out of me a little bit. But anyway, I just want to thank you again for popping by. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. It was a lot of fun making it. I hope that you're well. I hope the week ahead of you is just going to be sensational. Say good day to the family and the cockatoo for me, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.